Blog Talk Radio.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, across the country. It's that time. It's Tuesday, and, it's the Rust Belt Report, I call it. The Cleveland, Ohio show, the American Sports History podcast, hosted by my good friend, brother, and mentor, Peter Ray. Yours truly, Mark Mancini, producing this. 347-205-9631. Catch the archive on blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports podcast platforms, wherever you subscribe to. And then right after this, it's at 412 All Access Pittsburgh with David Finoli and Chris Fletcher. So Tuesday's really lined up, and keep your eye on it as we go across the board. So it's more of him, less of me, as I lay down the red carpet, put the podium in its place, and hand off the mic. First of all, Peter, how are you today? Second of all, how can people get a hold of you? Third of all, got a great guest coming through as soon as we get him set up through here.
Oh, hi, Mark. I'm doing well. I'm on Facebook. My name's Peter Ray, R-E-A. I have a YouTube channel, Peter J. Ray, R-E-A. I make history videos, and you're absolutely right about tonight's guest, Mr. Jerry Dupree. We're waiting for him to come on. Jerry Dupree played college basketball, University of Southern California, and was drafted in the NBA. He was a prospect with the Los Angeles Lakers and Golden State Warriors. He played overseas for 12 years in Venezuela, China, Japan, and Australia. Incredible. And he actually went to North Korea with Dennis Rodman and spent 2 weeks in North Korea during that really interesting thing that happened with Dennis Rodman. And he's got a book. It's called Ballin' Under Pressure, North Korea versus America, available on Amazon. A very extremely interesting guy and very inspiring, because he's actually got he's got a board game that's his newest project, Tip-Off Basketball. Really, and so he's got all kinds. He has a clothing line called Book Clothing. He has his own clothing line, and he's got this and this basketball game. His current project. So anyway, just a fascinating life story, and then this book on Amazon about North Korea versus America, Balling Under Pressure, and about that experience. So to me, I find it extremely interesting and inspiring, because creativity is so important. And here's the guy, he wasn't able to play in, the NBA is so competitive, but nowadays what's really fascinating about basketball is all the pro leagues are in, because probably basketball is the most popular international sport around the world. American football, not so much. Baseball, a little bit more, but basketball, super. And those who follow the NBA, it's really interesting. At least for someone like me, all the players from different countries around the world, and it's becoming more and more international. And I was in the Philippines for 20 years. The Filipinos that's their number one sport, and they have their own Philippine basketball league, professional basketball. So this guy, he had these experiences. And so hopefully we can hear him talk about what it was like to play in Venezuela, right, in China, Japan, and Australia, and, of course, North Korea. And just the whole creative mindset. I think, we all have creativity. And this is a guy, it's very tough getting into the NBA. Very, very tough, and then that didn't stop him from he wasn't able to do it, but he's just had and he's actually been very associated with the NBA. Obviously, Dennis Rodman, and I always thought, actually, from what I've heard, that Rodman, after that experience, went into rehab for alcoholism, and I used to think I had a problem with drinking myself, and I used to think that when he was telling his story of recovery from alcoholism, that he'd say, well, I found myself in North Korea singing "Happy Birthday" to this evil dictator Kim Jong-un during my last drunk, and so anyway, I thought that was pretty. Anyway, so that was just one of the most interesting things that's happened. I'm just communicating with him right now. And so anyway, really interesting fella, and hopefully we can get him on here and we can hear his story, because it's fascinating. And like I said, I consider myself a creative person. It's something important to me, and so anyway, we'll see if he can make it. He said sometime. Of course, he's in California, 3-hour time difference. So so Mr. Jerry Dupree, are you on?
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, great. We've been talking about. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were on. Mark just sent me a message. So I was telling the folks about your fascinating life playing basketball. I mean, I'm so inspiring. This creativity, which to me is so important.
Thank you.
You meet a lot of boring people in the world, but you're definitely not a boring guy, and just really wonderful. Would you like to give us an overview of your life associated with basketball?
Yeah. Boring life. Let me piggyback on that. Can't be. I'm a Virgo, I'm a creative person. It's the Virgo in me, and just, I'm a creative person. But, yeah, so a little bit about me. Born and raised in Los Angeles, California. Went to high school in Moreno Valley, California, where I grew up playing baseball. Baseball was my dad's favorite sport and one of my favorite sports. So I started playing baseball. Basketball was kind of not in my future for me. But my brother was playing basketball, and I was going to hang out with him and his buddies, going to the parks and the schools and watching them play. And finally one day I was like, man, I just need to start playing basketball because I can't play baseball by myself. You need like at least 2 or 3 people. So fast forward to high school, I really took it seriously and became an All-American in about 2 years. I started off really seriously at 15 years old. 16, 17, I graduated at 17. I was an All-American. And after that, I was able to get a scholarship to USC, played there, finished there in 2004. After that, I had the opportunity to play for the Lakers preseason and regular season, a few months in the regular season, and I ended up getting cut. Then I went overseas to Venezuela to play basketball, Australia, Japan, Caracas, and basketball has kind of been my everything, my day one. And fast forward to, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I had to retire because I ended up hurting my knees, tore my ACL, patella tendon, and meniscus on both of my knees. So I had a total of 4 knee surgeries. So I knew that basketball, a long time ago wasn't forever. So I had to really come up with different plans for myself, for my future. And the first thing I came up with was a clothing brand called Book Clothing Co., Brothers of One Kind. You guys can check it out at bookclothingco.com. It's a streetwear brand. We have hats, hoodies, T-shirts, sweatsuits, socks, and so on and so on. And it was something that I knew I wanted to do later on in life, but basketball was kind of my full-time job, so to speak. So fast forward to 2020, we ended up being in the pandemic with COVID-19. So everyone's sitting at home. Basketball wasn't an option. The coach or play. I was retired. I was sitting at home wondering, like, what's next? I had a dream. It was a board game, and I didn't think nothing of it. And I kind of talked about it with one of my buddies. And was like, hey, man, I had this dream about a board game. And he's like, you should create it and make it. As soon as he said it, something sparked in my head, like, he's right. I started jotting down on a piece of paper, and I ended up creating a board game called Hip-Hop Basketball, the Board Game. Actually, today I just picked up my shipment. I drove down to Long Beach Pier and picked up 500 board games that I created myself. The concept of the game is first person to 21. It's a mix between hot shot basketball and Monopoly, where you shake the dice and you go around the board. And each spot that you land on, it indicates if you score, if you lose points, and so on and so on. So that's where I'm at right now in the creative world. I've done a lot of creative things. I mean, some people will say, like, hey, you're doing a lot. But once again, I'm a Virgo, and the creativeness is in me. So let's backpedal a little bit. 2014, I had the opportunity to go to North Korea with Dennis Rodman, and I met Kim Jong-un, one of the most powerful dictators in the world. And that experience was one of a kind. It was like a movie. It was just every day I woke up, I was thinking I was in the movie. If you guys ever seen the movie The Truman Show with Jim Carrey, it was just like that. So like everyone was just there for us. Everyone was actors. So I returned home maybe two weeks after that trip, and another idea popped in my head was, hey, write a book about it. So I ended up writing a book about that. It's called Balling Under Pressure, North Korea versus America. You can get it at Amazon Kindle. It has it in the paperback and ebook. So, yeah, creativeness is something that I knew I always had, but once I got injured and stopped playing basketball, that's when it really manifests for me.
On your board game, it looks like you got you have mini basketball hoops and balls. So how does that play? How does that part of the game?
Oh, man. Yeah, so I created 2 mini basketball hoops with mini basketballs where you have to physically shoot the mini basketballs in the hoops, just like a regular, if you was at the gym and you shoot baskets in the regular court. But it's in mini size in the board game. So you shake the dice, you go around the board, and if you land on, let's say, a hot shot, each person gets 1 free shot, and you collect the points off of that. But I also created, too, the board game players' cards where we have a player card, physical activity card, where a player lands on that, they pick up a card, and they have an opportunity to get 5 points by doing push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks, running in place, and so on and so on. Then I also included maybe ref cards, sports questions. When did the Lakers win their first championship? When did Golden State win their first championship? And so on and so on. So everything is based around basketball terminology, basketball rules, and basketball knowledge. So this is a great game for kids younger that want to go pro or want to play basketball at a high level. They can actually understand the lingo and the terminologies of the game by playing tip-off basketball, the board game. And it also helps the younger kids off, too, counting, because you have to count your dice, you have to count your movement, you have to count your points. So it's overall an educational type of physical activity game which I created, which is called tip-off basketball.
Now, you went to North Korea. It sounds like you're friends with Dennis Rodman. Do you want to just talk about your relationship with Dennis Rodman?
Yeah, Dennis Rodman. Long relationship. I think I met Dennis Rodman in 2004. We both played on the same ABA, the ABA team, which was the Long Beach Jam. At that time, we had players like Matt Barnes, we had DeMar Johnson, we had myself, we had Dennis Rodman, we had a few other NBA prospects and guys that played in the NBA on that team. And the first day I ever met Dennis Rodman, he came in the gym, he had a little teacup dog. His manager was chasing it around, and we had to wait maybe 10 to 15 minutes for Dennis Rodman to take all his piercings out of his nose, ears, lips, put his socks on, put his shoes on, like he was taking his time, and we had to sit and watch him for 10 to 15 minutes. So that was my first notion of Dennis Rodman, like, oh, he's a real diva, so to speak. You know, he's one of the best players in the NBA at his time. He's the best rebounder of all time. Won many of NBA championships with Michael Jordan, so we had to respect him and who he was. So that was kind of my first day of meeting him, and we ended up winning the championship that year. And from that day on, me and Dennis Rodman's kind of been friends and running into each other periodically in Vegas and different Miami and San Diego, and I always run into him. So yeah, me and Dennis Rodman he's a really good guy.
And did he, when he decided to go to North Korea, did he give you a call and say, "Hey, you wanna come"?
Actually, we were playing in. We were in this program called the PBA, the Pro Basketball Association. It was ran by I forget his name. It'll come to me. So what we were doing, we were traveling to different countries. So we went to Malaysia. We went to, I think, Dominican Republic, some other places to play exhibition games. So while we were in Malaysia, me, Dennis Rodman, and a few other guys pulled an all-nighter. I mean, drinking cognac, smoking cigars, just hanging out, talking about his life in Chicago and just Dennis Rodman, period. And he, maybe like 2 or 3 in the morning, he just popped his question like, hey, you know I'm going to North Korea. You want to come? I was like, you talking to me? And he was like, yeah, I'm talking to you. I was like, yes, without any hesitation. I went to USC. I'm a history buff, so I was a history major there. So I was fascinated to even fathom to think that I could even go to a country like North Korea, and not even knowing I was going to be able to meet Kim Jong-un, but just the fact that I was going to this country and we were going to play a game in this country, and this country was somewhere that not too many Americans, probably not anyone really from America, to ever fly there and be greeted. And yeah, so that was the day when we were in Malaysia. He asked me, and there was no hesitation for me to say yes.
Did you ever think you might not get out of North Korea?
It was a couple times in my hotel. It had a big portrait with a face on it. I swear the eyes were moving. I swear they were. I don't know. I don't know, but that's a good question. There were a few times where I was questioning the reason. I think all of us were. I mean, we had Dupree there. We had Kenny Anderson there. We had Dennis Rodman. We had a few other NBA guys too, Robertson, Clifford Robertson there. So a lot of these guys were in a state of panic because their families were getting kind of ridiculed for them being in North Korea. So one instinct, I know one of the players, Kenny Anderson, his wife, called them, and she was crying and worried about the kids getting picked on at school, parents talking about your father's in North Korea. So that was one of the times that I felt like, oh, man, is this a mistake? Are we making a mistake? And it was to a point where, the guys were like, we're not playing. And I was kind of thinking to myself, like, whoa, we're not playing. We flew all the way to North Korea. They already took our passports. As soon as we landed, we have to play this game. And I kind of talked to a couple of guys like Doug Christie, and I was like, we have to play this game. We here. And we all sat down, and that's when we had that CNN meeting interview when Dennis Rodman was kind of like, what about these guys? You guys flew down here. And that was another instinct like, no telling who's watching this and who's thinking that we're there for other motives, because people thought we were there to help Kenneth Bay return home. They thought Dennis Rodman was some kind of Superman where he could just talk to Kim Jong-un and say, hey, release Kenneth Bay and let him return home with us. That wasn't the case. We found out maybe later on that we were there to celebrate Kim Jong-un's birthday, and the basketball game was a gift from Dennis Rodman. So that was another kind of like, oh, no, like we didn't know this information. But overall, it was a good trip. They treated us well. It was freezing cold there, but besides that, the trip was really good.
I heard, I don't know if it's true, I heard Dennis Rodman went into rehab after that for alcoholism, and I was in rehab myself, and when you get out of rehab, you go to meetings and you tell your story, and I used to imagine Dennis Rodman saying, well, my last drunk, I found myself in North Korea singing happy birthday to Kim Jong-un, an evil. Did you hear, you were there when Rodman sang happy birthday?
Yeah, let me tell you this story.
What did you think about that?
Let me tell you this story about alcohol. So the situation with Dennis Rodman and alcohol in North Korea was, I think for me, Jerry Dupree, this is my opinion, was a setup. Because I literally saw with my own eyes, the North Korea people had a person with 4 or 5 vodka bottles with Dennis Rodman and Kim Jong-un's picture with a Sharpie drawn on the bottle, and his job was to literally follow Dennis Rodman everywhere he went. And they had another guy with a cup in his hand. Every time Dennis Rodman's cup was empty, they would refill it up every single time. And I was looking like, this can't be some kind of courtesy. This has to be. Something was weird about it. That was his job, to fill up Dennis Rodman's cup with vodka. So when people was concerned and players were concerned about Dennis Rodman being drunk, yes, he was drunk, but I think it was because he was really afraid that things wasn't going to work out or things wasn't going to be as planned. And so I think he used that as his vice. And, yeah, I mean, we saw it on CNN. Dennis Rodman was a little drunk. He was a little bit irate, so to speak, but I think it was all because it was a setup, and he didn't want to, I guess, be like no, I don't want this. You know, he wanted the courtesy of North Korea to be, you know, just everything just flow. So when Dennis Rodman got home, I heard that he went to rehab. I knew the reason why, because Dennis Rodman was under a lot of pressure. I mean, from the president to the NBA, David Stern at the time, to players, families, friends, everyone. So I kind of understood why he was drinking obsessively, but me personally, I felt sad for him, you know, because, you know, he did have a history of alcoholism and been in and out of rehabs. And I thought it was a smart move, though, for him to do it. So I congratulate him. I pat him on his back. It was a smart move because he knew he was coming out of a problem, and if he didn't go to rehab at the time he did, no telling if Dennis Rodman would still be alive or, you know, free.
Well, he's, as we mentioned earlier, another guy, example of creativity. And, you know, basketball is a sport, it's entertainment, and, you know, so, and he was entertaining, and so you have to keep that in mind when generally a lot, you know, athletes in general aren't known for being very interesting, you know, because they put their energy into the sport, and whereas he, you know, is more than that. So now, did you now I can imagine how much pressure he was, because this was his thing. He planned that trip, right?
Yeah.
And so he got these other guys to go, and then it really did become a very you know, it's very unusual. And I can imagine. Did you talk to him after the trip about what he went through?
Yes, I got to talk to him when we flew into Beijing. So I forgot to answer the question about the scene. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So we're sitting at Kim Jong-un's palace or whatever it is, the dining area. I don't know what it's called. It was humongous. And they had some women singers there. So the women were singing throughout the time we were eating. And it was time for Dennis Rodman to, I guess, do his speech. See, no one knew Dennis Rodman was going to sing Happy Birthday at all. No one had any clue. Dennis Rodman didn't tell anyone, like, hey, I'm about to sing Happy Birthday. Check this out. He just went up there, had his drink in his hand, and looked around, paused for maybe about a minute 30, quiet. Everyone's kind of quiet, like, what's going on? Then all of a sudden, he started off really, like, low, like, Happy Birthday. It was like, what is going on right now? Then we heard the words. We heard Happy Birthday. And started getting louder and deeper. And then Dennis Rodman just went all in for about 2-3 minutes singing Happy Birthday, dancing around, toasting everyone. It was to the point like one of the guys almost got out of his chair, like, all right, Dennis, that's enough. But, you know, no one could really tell Dennis anything. Dennis was kind of like, he was a rock star, and we were his backup singers, so to speak, you know. So if Dennis Rodman had a problem, we had to sit there and listen to it. If Dennis Rodman wanted to throw plates and cups on the ground, we had to sit there and watch it. And if he wanted to sing Happy Birthday multiple times, we had to sit there and probably hum it. But, you know, yeah, that was really unique. I mean, this whole trip was very unique and a very crazy experience.
When you came back, were you contacted by the U.S. government to talk? Did anybody talk to you from the government about the trip? No comment?
I would say no comment on that one right now. I can't really speak on that per se, but I can say that, put it like this, once we flew into Beijing, I now understand what Beyonce, with Kim Kardashian, all these super celebrities, I understand that lifestyle when you're flying and you come into the airport and thousands and thousands of people with cameras, thousands and thousands of people with recorders chasing you out throughout the whole the airport. And that's what the experience that occurred. I mean, I never seen so many cameras, so many pictures being taken, so many flashes. It was really overwhelming. And I believe that there were a lot of guys who were contacted via whoever. I'm going to say question mark on that one. They were contacted, you know, and the guys kind of lost things, so to speak, business-wise and family issues and things like that. Those are things that I did hear. You know, I can't say any names of who it was about, but guys did lose relationships, business, money, because of this trip. And I think a lot of guys regret going on this trip because they didn't really understand the repercussions and consequences of trying to do something good and not really thinking that it was more than what it was. You know, everyone thought it was basketball, but it was really deeper than basketball. But we used basketball as an outlet to kind of collide these two countries together. That's something the president couldn't really do. You know, then a couple of years later now, Trump was in North Korea, you know, meeting, you know. So we were the first ones to do it, and a lot of guys, you know, it was ups and downs after they returned home. But for me, I was okay, you know. I think it was more so the NBA guys, like the high-profile NBA guys, they were the ones that really had the issues.
So they were punished.
I would say, so to speak, yeah, somewhat. You know, I don't think the money that they got to go to that trip was worth it. I don't believe, but yeah, I heard a lot of stories. A lot of guys regret it and kind of was disappointed in themselves. Why did they even do it in the first place? For me, I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was a good experience to even say that I've done, and no one in the world has even been to that country besides us and a few other people. So that's something that would go down in the history books, you know, for us, for me, myself. But other guys, yeah, I think they lost a lot of money, a lot of issues. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's world history. Kim Jong-un and Dennis Rodman. It's just, you know, it's really... and you talk about it's like a movie, but it really happened, and it's like incredible. I mean, then those two, and I think I mean Dennis Rodman is like I said, he's creative. I remember when he would stand at the free throw line, you know, when you're not doing anything, and he would turn and like face toward the guy who's shooting for the heck of it.
Exactly, you know, it's a distraction though. You know, Dennis Rodman's a flamboyant guy. You know, he likes to stand out. And I noticed that just being around him, you know, being at the airports in different cities and different countries, and everyone knows who this guy is. You know, he can never do anything without people watching him. So I think he's so used to it, and he likes that. I think he loves the attention that he gets. So anything to get attention, I think he's all for it.
When you were in Venezuela, was Hugo Chavez the leader of that country?
I don't remember. I was there in, what year was this? This was, I want to say 2006 or 7. So I don't recall then. But
do you remember? Do you want to talk about your time in Venezuela, another very interesting country?
Yeah, I mean, talking about scary. I think I was more scared in Venezuela than I was in North Korea. I mean, as soon as we landed, the people that was representing us, the team or whatever, they told us straight up, like, do not leave where we're putting you at. We was like, where are we going? You guys are staying on the military base. I was like, military base? So, yes, for your protection. I was like, oh, no, I don't belong out here. Yeah, because they told us if we walk in the streets by ourselves, then we're susceptible to get kidnapped or, you know, held for ransom. And I was like, oh, no. And, yeah, that was probably the one time overseas that I was really frightened because I saw people walking around with machine guns, military-grade guns, you know, just normal machetes. Like, it was like a movie, like another movie, you know. A lot of these experiences kind of feel like a movie. You know, you see it on TV, turn on a movie, and you're like, oh, this is not real life. But then you actually see it in real life, and you're like, oh, no wonder why they made a movie about this, because this is actually real life.
How about your time in China?
China was good. I like China. China's one of those countries I could see myself maybe, you know, visiting periodically or living there for a period of time. China was really good. I mean, besides the loss in translation, you know, the language, I love China. Chinese people are very respectable. They respect me. They probably stare at me a lot because I'm 6'7" and I'm an African American. But you know, besides that, the stairs and all that, I like it out there. The basketball is amazing. They love the culture. Japan is another place that I love. They love the culture. They love everything about my culture and the U.S. And those are places that I really like. And if you're a player out there and you're looking to go overseas, I say go to China, go to Japan, because the quality of basketball is very high and they treat you well. They pay your money. They're all about business there. So, yeah.
Did you play for the Harlem Globetrotters?
I did. I played for the Harlem Globetrotters in 2005. Yeah. I was with them for maybe 3 months. I couldn't do it anymore. I love the Harlem Globetrotters. I love what they're about. But at the time, Manny Jackson was the owner, and he wanted to sign me to a lifetime contract. And at the time, I didn't understand what that meant. He told me, you're going to make millions of dollars with me. But I was chasing the NBA dream. I was chasing playing in the NBA. So once he told me that, I had to leave. Like, I cannot do the Harlem Globetrotters. I mean, that job is 7 days a week, every day, and sometimes 2 games a day. And it's a great show. Don't get me wrong, it's great. But for me, as when I was younger, wanting to be a pro basketball player, it wasn't for me because it was too coordinated. It was a show, so to speak. It wasn't really like that hard not to play basketball. Let's win this game. Like the other team knew what we were doing and things like that. But overall, it was a great experience. I got to meet a lot of the legends of Harlem Globetrotters, and Manny Jackson was a legend himself, being the owner, and I got to, travel around the United States and see different places that I never think I would, visit. So it was a good experience.
Are you related to Marcus Dupree, the former tremendous high school and college running back?
Right. Good question. That's funny that you asked that because I actually watched that documentary. I think he had one on Netflix maybe a year or so ago or a couple years ago on Netflix about that story. I don't know. Both last name Dupree, and my grandfather is originally from Louisiana, Texas area, and I think his family is around from that area, New Orleans, Texas, somewhere around that area too. So you never know. I don't know. A lot of people ask me about the rapper Jermaine Dupree. Like, am I related to him too? Who knows?
Yeah, one of my favorite books that I never read was called The Courting of Marcus Dupree, about when I guess he was like the best high school running back, and then at college, and he got hurt. Yeah. So, but we are out of time. The time has flown by. Our guest has been Mr. Jerry Dupree, who played overseas in Venezuela, China, Japan, and Australia. He was in North Korea with Dennis Rodman and Kim Jong-un. He's created a board game called Tip-Off Basketball, the board game, and he's got a clothing line. Mr. Jerry Dupree, do you have any final words for our audience?
Yeah, Tip-Off Basketball, you can check it out at brainfitgames.com. They're on sale actually today. Book Clothing Co., the streetwear brand, you can check it out at bookclothingco.com. We have T-shirts, hats, sweaters for all ages, all genders, everyone. And also you can check out the book about North Korea because I tell a lot of information in that book, too, about stories that no one knows about. So you can check that out on Amazon Kindle. That's Balling Under Pressure, North Korea versus America. And, I had a great time. Time went by fast, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been an honor. What an inspiration, because it's always good to see. It's just wonderful meeting people who are creative, because that's what the world needs more of. We need more, because there's no end to creativity, and we and everyone has that. So I'm sure you're an inspiration to many people.
Yeah, and one more thing for everyone that's listening, and just like my motto is Nike, just do it. If you have an idea, bring it to life. Don't be afraid. Just do it. Try it, because you never know what can happen.
Wonderful. Our guest again has been Mr. Jerry Dupree. Next week we'll have Bruce Kessinger from San Francisco Sports. Dear listener, may the road rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Good night, everybody. Thanks again, Mr. Jerry Dupree.
No problem. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Okay.
Good night.
Wonderful. Good night.